For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, and our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in a new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series now streaming on Showtime.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, Hoop Ballers, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Balls DFS Today. This is your Thursday, June 10th edition. I am your host, Santino Cacone. I'll be riding this one solo for you guys. We have a quick 2-game slate for you, as usual. We only have 4 matchups left, 2 on each side, 8 teams. Not many games on one day's slate here. But we're here with Game 3 of Brooklyn-Milwaukee, going to now in Milwaukee, and Game 2 of the Clippers-Utah series. It's going to be some good ones, hopefully. We were coming off a 1-game Wednesday slate, a showdown slate there, but I think this one will be a nice refresher before we eventually go to 1-day slates only, which is to me. But here we are. Before we get into it, I do want to give a quick shout out over to our guys at MyBookie, simply the best sports book around. They have a fully fledged casino platform, everything that you need at your fingertips. Any sports bet you can think of. In addition to that, you can have live casino dealers, table casino games with live dealers, everything you want, or virtual, whatever the case may be. But all of that is at your fingertips. So if you want to sign up, if you haven't already, you can get your first deposit matched halfway up to $1,000 by entering the promo code HOOPBALL upon signing up. It's as simple as going to MyBookie, signing up, entering the promo code HOOPBALL, and you get, if you put in $1,000, you get an extra $500 to play with, and so on and so forth. And the best part of MyBookie, they pay you, and they pay super fast, so anytime you want to do a withdrawal, you can do so and get your money into your account very efficiently, very quickly. I also want to give a shout out to our guys over at Manscaped, the number 1 men's below the waist grooming in the world. They are, I can't say enough good things about Manscaped. I love them. But they want, there is something called Father's Day that's coming up in 10 days from now. And what better way to help your father than get some Lawnmower 4.0 action in there, the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. I'm still on the 3.0. I absolutely love it. I have the perfect package 3.0, but now we have the Lawnmower 4.0 and the ultra smooth package. Everything in there from the last one. We have the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which has a 7,000 RPM trimmer and features skin safe technology, a new multifunction on-off switch, and can engage a travel lock created for jet setters. It gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for the more precise shave, and additional guard lengths with sizes 1 to 4 to let you trim to your liking. We also have the crop exfoliator, the crop gel, and the crop shaver, and all that good stuff. All three of those things are all cruelty-free and sulfate-free products. And if you want to get yourself in on the or the ultra smooth package with the Lawnmower 4.0 and all that good stuff, go on down to manscaped.com and enter the promo code hoopball20. That's HOOPBALL20 to get 20% off and free shipping. So again, get 20% off and free shipping, but the promo code hoopball20 at manscaped.com. Time to get smooth. All right, guys. We are on to the main slate. And the first game of the docket is the Brooklyn Nets traveling to the Milwaukee Bucks for Game 3, the first game in Milwaukee. We have for a spread here. The Bucks are 3.5-point home favorites. They're down 0-2, and the second game was a blowout, but they are 3.5-point home favorites here. And we have a whopper of a 234 game total, much higher than the next game. On the injury report for the Nets, we have Spencer Dinwiddie, James Harden, and Jeff Green all out. For the Bucks, we have Jordan Nwora, Sam Merrill, and Dante DiVincenzo all out. We'll start with the Bucks here. The Nets here. They are the away team. And obviously, when you start with the Nets, we start with the big three, which is now the big two because James Harden is out. Anytime one of these three guys is out, the other two get a massive boost because instead of sharing the ball with three main guys, you have two, and then everybody else pitches in there a little bit extra as well.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in a new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series now streaming on Showtime.
Throat was parched for a second. Kevin Durant is the second highest priced guy on the slate at $10,600. And likewise, Kyrie Irving is the third highest guy on the slate because there is no James Harden at $9,700. They're both been putting up value here. Kevin Durant more so. And they didn't even play a full complement of minutes in this last game. I don't mind going with either of them. Obviously, this is a massive game total, and there is no James Harden again. I'll mention it. So these two guys get the bulk of the load here. But I don't know how much exposure I will have just because there are some guys on the other games and on the opposite side of this game that I do want a little bit more exposure to in that same price range. I just can't imagine them walloping the Bucks again, especially since the Bucks are going home. But can't fault you for wanting exposure to Kevin Durant, who looks like the best player left in these playoffs, and Kyrie Irving, who has been Kyrie Irving. But Kyrie Irving's been playing, even though he's racking up assists and there is no Harden right now, he's still playing a little bit more off ball than normal. They're still keeping him at that Sato shooting guard role, combo guard role. So I don't know if he'll get to double-digit assists. Drew Holiday is going to be guarding him most of the time, so a 40-point upside game is super hard, and I mean actual points. So I don't mind not spending $9,700 for him. I do think Blake Griffin at $4,800 makes for a rock-solid choice. He only played 26 minutes in the last one. They did win by nearly 40 points, 39, and he still put up 7 points, 8 rebounds. The game before that, 18 and 14. Don't expect him to do another 18 and 14, but he has the ability to get another double-double with some other stats, like a couple assists, maybe a block or a steal there, a couple threes. He can put up 30 fantasy points here in this matchup as long as he continues to start, which I expect him to do as long as while Jeff Green is out. DeAndre Jordan is not in the rotation whatsoever. Nick Claxton's hasn't reached 20 minutes yet. So I expect that to continue. I like Claxton, but he hasn't played 20 minutes since the 16th, and that was a regular season game. So probably going to continue relying heavily on Blake Griffin to play a lot of minutes, especially at that center position, and then they can go smaller with Kevin Durant if need be. But I think Blake Griffin, to get some exposure to this team in this game, makes a lot of sense. This rotation has been very tight, especially without James Harden. It's pretty much Durant, Kyrie, Harris, Griffin, Bruce Brown, Mike James, Landry Shamet, and Nick Claxton. With Claxton not playing a ton, Shamet playing a little bit, and then the other guys playing a little bit. And then with that said, I think Mike James and Bruce Brown both make a lot of sense here. Mike James more so. He has seen 30 and 24 minutes. He could have seen a lot more minutes in the massive blowout, but they didn't really throw him in there too much. But he's brought back over 20 points in both games. That's value there at 3,800. We can continue to throw him in there. He's playing a lot of point guard here. And the matchup is pretty good. You know he's not going to get Drew Holiday as long as Kyrie Irving's in there. And you know Dante DiVincenzo is hurt as well, and he's not playing in the series. So their second very good guard defender is not there, which gives Mike James a solid boost there. Same with Bruce Brown. He's firmly in the rotation. He's going to play around 20 to 27, maybe 30 minutes, but I think that's pushing it. But he's been bringing back value a lot. The last 4 games, he's brought at least 21 points and three times over 26 points. 2 against Milwaukee, the first 2, and then the last 2 against Boston. Been playing pretty well, and he's only 4,200, so that's another cheap option to throw in your lineup if you want to have exposure to this game. That's probably where I'm looking at. If you wanted to take a chance on Shamet at the bare minimum value, I don't mind that. I think he'll play 15 or so minutes. You know he can get hot, and you can beat the Bucks at the 3-point line. Don't think the upside is crazy, but if you are sticking in a lot of high-priced guys and you need someone at the bottom barrel, it's going to be hard to find someone with like that. Same with Nick Claxton. I do like him, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be playing a ton in this series unless Blake Griffin gets into foul trouble and or hurt. So those are just 2 Hail Mary options if you're stuck towards the last spot or 2 and only have 3K left. So that's it. I like Griffin, James, and Brown as my value plays here. Shamet and Claxton are my Hail Marys, and then we know the two big guys if you can fit them in. Going on over to the other side, we have the Milwaukee Bucks down 0-2, got embarrassed by a 39-point loss in the last one. So they didn't outscore the Nets in any single quarter. Embarrassingly as that sounds, they were getting blown out, and they still could not outscore the Nets in the fourth quarter or the third quarter. That's just bad. But all that said, I do prefer Giannis over KD. This guy's one of the best players in the world, and now people are just ripping on him. And I see a 65-point plus fantasy game out of him. He is the highest guy on the slate at 11-1. He actually went up $100 since the last game and in that blowout, and $300 since game 1. So maybe DraftKings knows a little bit more like this too, that he's due for a big bounce back game. And he was averaging in all 5 games, including the last 2, including the 2 playoff games. He's averaging 59.5 fantasy points against the Nets. That's including the 39-point stinker and the 57-point game in game 1. So he was averaging over 60 fantasy points in the regular season against the Nets. I expect that trend to come back, especially in a game 3 that is super pivotal. They cannot lose this game if they want any chance of winning this series, and they are at home. So I like me some Giannis, and he will be the guy that I pay up for a little bit over Durant. And that's why I was a little more bullish on Durant. Not that he isn't Durant, but just think Giannis is due. Likewise for Chris Middleton, another guy who was playing really well in the 5. He's averaging 40 points against the Nets, and that's including the 2 games in this series. He put up 35 in game 1 and a 25-point stinker in game 2. I expect that to bounce back. He was averaging over 43 fantasy points or so before this playoff series. Now they are home. I expect him to make a big jump. He plays a lot better at home throughout the entire season. If you look at his stats, he shoots nearly 51% from the field in home games, 44% in away games. 47-point shooter from the 3-point line at home, as opposed to nearly 36% or under 36% at opposing courts. So all the research says that Chris Middleton is much better at home than he is away, and I expect that trend to come back here, especially against Brooklyn. All the reasons mentioned kind of for Giannis is game 3. They are on their home court. They cannot lose this game if they want any semblance of hope to win this series. And Chris Middleton has just been historically this season much better at home than away. Shooting wise, he's only averaging less than a point more at home. I mean, on the road, he's averaging just slightly under 1 point less on the road than at home. But his shooting has been just night and day difference from the 3-point line and field goal percentage when he's at home. So I expect that to continue at only 7,800. I think we are getting a very good value, and I think 40 points should be what I expect from him with some upside there. Drew Holiday is another guy that you can look at, but I prefer Middleton in this environment. As weird as it sounds, Drew Holiday is better on the road than at home throughout this season. So for those reasons and whatnot, I have a feeling about Middleton bouncing back. He's also getting a lot of heat. And those are two guys, and he doesn't have to extend his energy on the other side of the ball, as Drew Holiday has to be chasing around Kyrie Irving. There is no James Harden for both of them to go after, so I do prefer Chris Middleton for just $200 more. Outside of that, I mean, it's tough. No one has been doing much of anything this series. You can look at Brook Lopez to bring back solid value here at 4,600. I think Blake Griffin has the higher upside at only 200 more, but Brook Lopez, again, if you're stacking stars and scrubs kind of thing, or high price, low price, I won't call him a scrub, then you can look at him too for at only 4,600. Not a bad play there. Another guy that you can look at, PJ Tucker, near bare minimum value. He's playing. He's played 40 minutes or 50 minutes total in this series so far. Doesn't have huge upside, but if you're filling out your lineup, you can get about 27 to 32 minutes out of PJ Tucker, and he's near bare minimum at 3,100. And those are the guys that I'd be looking at currently on this Buck squad. Mainly the top two, and then I'll throw in Brook Lopez and PJ Tucker for some cheap action there if need be. And then you can look at who starts at shooting guard. If you want another value play, it's going to be either Connaughton or Bryn Forbes. Two guys, they should split the minutes, but you might be able to get a cheap starter again for a very reasonable price. All right, guys. So that's one game in the books. Now we have game 2. We have the Los Angeles Clippers in Utah again, taking on the Jazz for game 2 of the series. The Clippers were winning, and then the Jazz behind Donovan Mitchell stormed back in that second half and won the game. So the Jazz have a 1-0 lead right now. And we will start with the spread. We have a 221 game total, which is 13 points less than the previous game. And the Jazz are 3-point home favorites. That's ironically how much they won by in game 1. On the injury report for the Clippers, we have Serge Ibaka as out and Mike Conley as questionable. Conley is the one guy on this slate that we're going to have to keep an eye on. He is the one big name that may or may not play. I think he was getting close, so that is certainly something to keep an eye on. I think he is going to, I would say it's 60-40 that he plays, but that's very close, reasonably up in the air. All right, we'll go on to the Clippers since they are the away team. They are down 0-1. And we'll start with the two big guys. Kawhi Leonard shot 9 of 19 in the first game. Looked really good at first, and then looked like they slowed down at the end and got a little bit tired, especially him. Paul George shot only 4 of 17. He did have 10 rebounds, but he didn't do much of anything else, 20 and 10. I think they're due for a bounce back, but I think that playing a 7-game grueling series, now they had to come back, maybe did take a lot out of them. Game 1, and now they're still in Utah. So I don't know if I want to fully throw my support behind either of them. I think Donovan Mitchell is right in the middle of those two, and I'd probably prefer him at that price tag, and you can pay down a little bit. But I don't hate going to a Kawhi Leonard. We know what he's capable of. He's capable of 60-point upside, and at 9.6, I would prefer him over Paul George, but that's $1,100 price tag difference. So I'll see what you do with the Stars, but I'm probably not having too much exposure to either of them. If I had to pick, it'd be Leonard. I think we do have enough value options here on this slate that we can get a couple of these high-priced guys in there. Next guy on the team is Reggie Jackson. He only played 17 minutes in that last one, which was my fear. Now that they don't need instant offense, they don't fully need to throw him out there. He did play pretty well while he was out there, but now they do have options. They have Rajon Rondo, they have Patrick Beverley back in the rotation. Terrence Mann has certainly made himself worthy of a lot more playing time. So they have all these options. And out of those guys, Rajon Rondo was the one who took the lion's share of minutes. So it's kind of a little bit scarier. Beverly didn't play much. Mann didn't really play much. And then there's Luke Kennard, who played a lot as well. He's taking a lot more. He played nearly 30 minutes in the last one. So the guard rotation here is a little up in the air from game to game. So I'll take some shots at Mann, Kennard, Rondo, Beverly. I probably won't have many shots at Reggie Jackson because he's too expensive for taking a shot at 5,400. But Rondo, Kennard, Mann, Beverly, 35, 33, 32, 30, 3K, all super cheap for me to take a shot on or not. Whoever you're feeling, maybe wait out the starting lineup. Rondo played the most in the last game, so him and Kennard both played the most. Maybe look that way, but Terrence Mann should be playing more than the 8 minutes that he played in the last one. He showed himself to be very reliable and a big reason why they came back in the last series. So I expect him to turn it around. Beverly is an option at 3K, but I just don't like him as a basketball player too much. I expect him to play more than 6 minutes, but he's just not high upside either. DeMarcus Cousins is a guy who looked pretty solid when he was on the floor. He only played 4 minutes, but those were 4 very productive minutes. He did have 3 fouls, but he looked pretty good out there. He was grabbing some rebounds. He had a 3, couple scores down low. He had an and 1. He looked pretty good. He only played 4 minutes, though, so very shaky there, but I think he might be a guy who can get into the rotation. They have been playing super small. Marcus Morris has been starting at center. And at 4,500, another option that you can throw there, kind of around the Blake Griffin territory. I prefer Blake Griffin. I think Blake has a little bit higher upside, but Morris is another guy that isn't too bad. He's pretty much like a Brook Lopez as well, another option to just throw there that's cheap. But I think Clippers have a ton of super cheap and affordable options. That's where I'll have most of my exposure to. Probably have more exposure to Rondo and Kennard than everybody else, but I don't mind going to a Marcus Morris either, and a Kawhi Leonard if you're going star scrubs. All right, on to the next game. Next team we have the Jazz, the last team of the night, and we saw a couple things. We saw Spida Mitchell put this team on his back and get this to a 1-0 Utah advantage. He dropped 45 points on 16 of 30 shooting, 6 of 15 from 3. He was feeling it, especially in that third quarter. He was just on fire. I don't mind going there again if in the middle of he's 8,900, so he's pretty much right in the middle of Kawhi and Paul George. Eventually, he's going to get a lot of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but I don't know. Maybe they'll give it one more game until they do that adjustment. We'll have to see what Ty Lue does. But if that's the case, I don't mind going to Mitchell again. He showed that he can score and he can get hot, and he is the alpha and omega on this team, especially if Mike Conley is out. again, if Mike Conley doesn't play, that gives everybody a boost. Mitchell, Joe Ingles gets the start. Clarkson gets more opportunity. Bohan gets more opportunity. If Conley does play, it drops everybody slightly. I won't be so high on Mitchell if Conley does play, but he's still going to shoot 20-plus shots in this. I can't see him not taking that many shots. So either way, I'm going to like him, but I won't be as high on him if Mike Conley does ultimately suit up. That said, I do want to put faith back in Rudy Gobert. I expected a lot more from him. Only 10 points. He only took 6 shots, only made 2 of them. I need him to be bigger. I need him to be better. He is going against Marcus Morris and a bunch of shorter people. Cousins played a couple minutes. Zubats played not too much. But Rudy Gobert really needs to be the physical and imposing force down low, both on defense and on offense. And at 7,700, I'm going to take another shot at him in hopes that he can do that. We'll see exactly, but I have faith that he can bounce back in this one in his individual performance on the fantasy score sheet. Outside of that, not super, super high on the other two. Maybe I'll have a little bit more exposure to Clarkson if Mike Conley is out. If Mike Conley is in, don't want to play either of them. If Mike Conley is out, I like Joe Ingles, 4,700. Just a solid value play, not major upside, but we know that he can play and he's going to start and be there for us when we need him. And Royce O'Neal at 5,100, he's just going to play a ton of minutes. Minutes equal money. If you're around that range and you want someone reliable to play 35 minutes plus and bring back maybe 30 fantasy points, 25, 30 fantasy points, value and a little bit over value, 5-6x. Royce O'Neal's your guy. We know that he can be there and get all those minutes because he's just vital. They need him to guard every position on the court, which he can do, and that's why he plays so much. And Derek Favors played 15 minutes in the last game and looked pretty good out there. He took more advantage than Gobert against the small guys. And I don't mind throwing a dart throw at him again at 3,100. Another option for you guys on that cheap bargain bin. And I think that's what we have a lot of, which is weird. We have a lot of bargain bin guys that we can throw at people in this 2-game series deep in the playoffs. All right, that does it for the 2-game podcast. Before we go, I'll do my quick player tiers. My favorite option over 8K for my expensive guys, I'm going to go with Giannis. I just think he's going to – I know you're paying top dollar for him, but I do think we have a lot of cheap options on the slate that we can pair him with. And I think he has the highest upside and scores the most points on the slate. Maybe not dollar-wise, he's not the best, but I think he's the safest for 60 points. I just can't imagine him doing this team falling flat on their face like they did in the last game, now that they're at home and in a game 3. This is one of the best players on the planet, 2-time MVP before the season, back-to-back. Just can't imagine him shooting and playing the way that he did and they did in the last game. And likewise for Chris Middleton, who's my favorite mid-tier play of the night, 7,800. If I can't get exposure to Giannis and I want to go a little bit different route, maybe balance things out, maybe like a Mitchell, Kyrie, et cetera, then I want Chris Middleton exposure. Similar sentiment for Giannis. This guy, he put up over 40-plus fantasy points on average in the regular season against this team. Now he only has 60 total in 2 games. He's played very poorly, and he's much better at home than he is on the road. They are now home. He's not going to shoot 13 of 43 again. And that's what he's shot in the last 2 games. I expect that to get closer to 500 shooting. And with that said, if he does get closer to 500 shooting, value is going to be had here. So I really like Chris Middleton I think he's a super safe option. For my value play, anything under 5, I guess we're just going to stick with this same team, the same game, not the same team, but the same game. It's Blake Griffin. I think he's super safe at 4,800. Didn't think I would have said this earlier in the year when he was still on Detroit or even in Brooklyn when they were kind of easing him in and playing him a certain amount of minutes. But we know that he's playing a lot of minutes in this series, already at 61 minutes in 2 games. Only played 26 in the last one, but they didn't need him to play. They blew him. They won by 39 points. So he was able to get in-game rest there. I think he's in for another 30-plus minutes. He probably would have played more than 35 in the first game if he did not foul out. But I think he's grabbing rebounds. He's looking better. He only has 4 assists in the 2 games in the series, something that he's better at. He's one of the better, best passing big men in this game. So I expect another 25-plus fantasy points. I think value is easily had here. Jeff Green's not playing. DeAndre Jordan's not in the rotation. Nick Claxton's only playing minutes in the teens. So they're playing Blake Griffin a lot, and minutes equal money, especially a guy this talented in a fast-paced matchup. All right, and that does it for our player tiers. Thank you guys for joining in, as always. If you want, give us a rate, review. Tell us what you like, what you don't like on whatever platform you listen to. And then you can follow us on Twitter at all of our different Hoopball tags. We have Hoopball Gaming, Hoopball Team Podcast, Dan's Podcast, everything there. You can follow me at Santino Cacone. But again, thank you guys for listening in. Tomorrow we will have Will and Dave back for you for Friday. And have a good night and good luck.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose 4-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in a new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series now streaming on Showtime.